How's it going, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Thorn's Jungle, the jungle where the plants eat you and the bugs are the size of Cadillacs. That is Thorn's Jungle. Hope everyone's had a great week. Now, before we get into this episode, I do have a Patreon. And for those of you that don't know what a Patreon is, it's basically a paid subscription platform where you can support artists and things like that. And you can also support this show, Thorn's Jungle. For as little as $3 a month, you can get a whole extra episode a week. So I'll put a link in the description. You can listen to this or watch this, like the extra episodes. You can also listen to it on Spotify as well through Patreon. You just subscribe and you can listen to it just like you're listening to this. So if you want an extra episode a week, head over to that Patreon and support the show. I'd be very thankful. And for those of you that are already Patreon members, thank you very much. Alright, today's episode. I was kind of inspired this morning because I found out that a well-known Indian conservationist, primarily tiger conservationist, called Valmik Thapar, passed away recently. Now, he passed away a few weeks ago, but I only found out about it today. Now, Valmik Thapar was kind of iconic in the conservation world. There are like real sort of like higher ups in conservation, well-regarded people, and he was one of them. I've known of Valmik Thapar for a long time, for many, many years since I was a kid. So it was sad to hear that he passed away. And it kind of gave me an idea, and that kind of carries over to this episode and what this episode is about. And also it ties into the fact that the national park, which is called Ranthambore National Park, very famous national park in India, I'm going there in October for one of our Nature Quest trips. So it kind of all ties together, and Valmik Thapar did a lot of work out of Ranthambore National Park, especially regarding an individual tiger called T24. And that's a tiger, that's not a Terminator. Although, this tiger, T24, terminated a few people. And that's what our episode is about. So Ranthambore National Park has been around for a long, long time. It's like you got Ranthambore, then you got Jim Corbett National Park, which are probably the most famous national parks in India, and they're famous for their tigers. And you can do tiger safaris through this national park, which is what we're doing in October. Is it October or November? I think it's November. Well, it goes from into November. Anyway, I should probably double check that so I know what the dates of the trip are. So for those of you that have never done a game drive or anything like that, a lot of the times in national parks you have circuits through these national parks. So there's roads and paths through these parks, and each little circuit has a name, and each area of the national park has like its own area code. So guides and drivers and the national park staff, like the rangers and things like that, know what area people are talking about when they say a specific area, like zone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then circuit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 within that zone. And a lot of the times the drivers will be like, okay, we're doing this circuit today, like that drive the game vehicles, so you can do your safari. They'll be like, we're doing this circuit today in zone blah blah, zone 1 through to zone 3, that kind of thing. And tigers, obviously being tigers, they have a huge range. So tigers are solitary animals. They don't live in prides like lions. They for the most part solitary, but that's not, including when they come together to mate, or a female with cubs. Obviously she's not solitary when she's got some little babies walking along next to her, but for the most part they're alone in their lives. And they also they have a huge range, so the areas where tigers need to live need to be huge. because tigers, especially the males, will fight over their territories. Yeah, they come into each other's territories all the time. Some of them overlap, and that's when you get conflict. But for the most part, they kind of know where another tiger's territory is because they spray like concentrated cat piss around the place, and it's like a scent marker saying, "Hey, I'm here, just so you know." So this one particular tiger we're talking about. Now, I'll give you some background on tigers before I get into this tiger. Tigers are known man-eaters. They're not like other man-eaters like, let's say, great white sharks, where, for a lot of the time, and a lot of cases, shark attacks on humans have been attributed to cases of mistaken identity, where the great white shark has seen a surfer from underneath and gone, "Hey, that's a nice fat juicy seal, I'm going to take a bite out of that." And that's resulted in, loss of life or severe injuries. But at the end of the day, we don't really know. We can't confirm that it's mistaken identity with sharks because we don't know what they're thinking. They might just be like, "That's a man on a surfboard and I'm going to eat him." But, you got to look at the shark and go, why would it want a human when there are like 300 kilo sea lions swimming around that have way more calories than a bony human? So we can kind of assume that it's mistaken identity. And, there are times where the victim hasn't been fully consumed, it's taken a bite, and then left the person. It's gone, I don't eat junk food. I don't want this dirty human. But obviously a investigation bite from a 16-foot great white shark is going to render you half the man you were before, right? But with tigers, humans are definitely on the menu. There is no doubt about that. There are lots of cases of tigers stalking human beings and, sometimes primarily stalking and eating human beings because they're an easy meal. We are, without weapons, basically defenseless animals. No human being alive can fight a tiger and win. No chance. Tigers are a very efficient predator, right? And you look at lions. Lions do kill and eat human beings. They absolutely do. But tigers live in very thick forested areas. So you're just going to get ambushed by a tiger and not even know it. And there are some communities, I believe there are some in Thailand, I do believe there are some in North India that do it, where the farmers will wear masks like that look like faces on the back of their heads. So while they're tending to their crops and things like that, a tiger is less inclined to attack you, to, ambush prey, if it knows the prey can already see it. So whether or not it's a super effective mechanism, it probably does help to some degree, and some degree is better than no degree. And that no degree can be corpse. You're a corpse. So in certain parts of the world, tiger predation on humans and human-tiger conflict is a big problem. And there are lots of parts in India where tiger-human conflict is super, is a big issue. And we're going to look into this one individual that was basically the king of Ranthambore National Park. And this isn't like an old historic story that happened, in the 1900s, 1800s. This happened quite recently. And it was a big issue. It did make it to the news. It was well, covered in the media. And that's where Valmik Thapar kind of comes into play as well. And I'll give you the history. So T24 was a tiger, and when you number a tiger like T24, T5, that and the other. That is basically for the rangers and things like that. And they number them because they don't want to give them, cute names. It anthropomorphizes them. There are a lot of issues that some scientists don't like or conservationists don't like. But this one had a name. They still, people still name them. You can't not. So T24's name that he was given by, the locals was Ustad. And Ustad was a dominant male occupying Zone 1, 2, and 6 of Ranthambore National Park. So that was his domain. That was his territory. He was born in the Lapur area in 2006 to a tiger named T20 or Jumro and a tigress T22 called Gayatri. Gayatri. Ah, fuck. You know what I'm like with names. And T24 or Ustad rose to dominance in 2010. People started knowing, like, hey, this tiger's he's a dominant one. He's alpha. He's king of his domains, the domains that he dwells in, which is 1, 2, and 6 domains. And he had a territory of 40 square kilometers. That was his territory. That is huge. Massive territory. And like I said before, tigers do need large territories. As he grew, as he started, establishing his own territory, the park rangers kind of became a little scared of him. He was growing, and he was growing big, and he was known to instill fear into the park rangers, which is a big call considering these park rangers work with tigers. This is their job. So for one individual tiger to instill fear into them kind of says a lot. So you've got like rangers, you've got forest guards, these people patrol the parks for poaching and things like that. And this particular tiger, Ustad, was known to be basically fearless of humans, which is a danger. You want tigers to be scared of humans. You don't want them to lose that fear. And tigers kind of know, that they could mess up a human, like, without any difficulty whatsoever. Now, this is where Valmik Thapar comes into play, because once Ustad established his territory, he ended up being an enormous tiger. And to be honest, this is one of the biggest Bengal tiger examples I've ever seen in the wild, right? Ustad weighed 270 kilograms, which is nearly 600 pounds. Now, to put that into context, the largest individual lions will be about 250 kilos, 500 pounds, and that is at the largest. And Ustad was 270, 600 pounds, which is insane. And that's on an empty stomach as well. He was weighed, which is just crazy big. The only cat that exceeds that size is another of the tiger subspecies, which is the Siberian tiger, which has been, I believe in captivity, weighed at 350 kilograms, which is, like 700 pounds or something like that, 750 pounds, which is ridiculous. So Bengal tigers and Siberian tigers are very close in size, and the largest individuals of either kind of are quite similar in weight. So big, bloody cats. In fact, Ustad was the largest tiger ever recorded in Ranthambore National Park, in the history of Ranthambore National Park. So think about that for a second. He is the biggest tiger that's ever lived in Ranthambore National Park, and he fears no man. That's a dangerous combination. Bloody dangerous combination. he started killing people. And let me just find that, because Valmik Thapar had a little bit to say, and I want to quote him, and I don't want to really mess that up, his quotes. Okay. So this Valmik Thapar is the tiger conservationist. He is the tiger man, right? He has worked with tigers, I want to say, for at least 50 years, or even more. Or here he says here, 40 years. But this is working just with the tigers of Ranthambore. So he spent 40 years working with the tigers in Ranthambore. And this is a quote. In my 40 years of experience of the tigers of Ranthambore, T24, Ustad, is the most dangerous tiger I have ever encountered. He killed 4 people, including 2 forest guards and 2 locals. The local villagers were partly eaten. The forest guards were not eaten because their bodies were retrieved, keeping the tiger at bay. So, a man that has worked with tigers for 40 years in this... I mean, he's worked with tigers for longer than 40 years, but this 40 years is only in Ranthambore working with tigers. In all those years, T24 Ustad is the most dangerous tiger he's ever encountered, and that is saying something. Being that big to instill fear into forestry workers that see tigers almost on a daily basis, that's saying something. So, Valmik Thapar goes on to say, okay, a little bit more context before I get into this. After these attacks, and after Ustad was identified as being the killer, and this does, there is some controversy around this, he was labelled a human killer, a man-eater, and there was talks of capturing him and basically putting him in a zoo. They deemed him too dangerous for the park, and, rather than just shooting him, which in a lot of countries that's what they would do, they would just euthanize him, shoot him, or at least the locals would, not so much the forestry workers, but the locals, a lot of times they get fed up and they're like, nah, this tiger has to go. So it's kind of, the best outcome, really. I mean, it does suck because Ranthambore National Park is where tigers, should live freely. That's the whole idea of a national park, is, that's where they live, that's where they can live, that's where they're supposed to be the most protected. So a lot of people were like, well, that kind of defeats the whole purpose of a bloody national park, doesn't it? And I can see that for sure. But I can also see on the other end of the scale is if they don't capture Ustad and keep him captive somewhere, then he will be killed. He will be poisoned, he will be shot, and then, there's that also, the thing of, like, are they shooting the right tiger? Locals might just see a tiger and shoot it. And, it gives tigers a bad name when people are being killed, because it does promote people wanting to kill the tigers, unfortunately. Now, a lot of activists that were against capturing Ustad and moving him to captivity were arguing that it could have been multiple tigers. We don't know that these 4 deaths were attributed to Ustad. But it was in his territories. These killings did happen. And yeah, there might be females in that territory, and females will absolutely take humans, for sure. But, these forestry workers were pretty convinced it was Ustad, and it probably was. The 2 forestry workers that were killed were taken away out of Ustad's grip, so they're kind of confirmed, because he was there holding on to him. So yeah, it's probably likely it was Ustad, and when he's killed one person, hey, easy prey, them humans. So, let's go back into what Valmik Thapar said. After the first 2 kills, I had suggested that this tiger be relocated to a captive enclosure, but the tiger was given the benefit of the doubt. Later, 2 forest personnel had to sacrifice their lives as a result. So, hey, he made the suggestion, right? This tiger's going to keep killing people. And they were like, nah, maybe he won't. And, of course, he did. He killed 2 more people. So at this time, T24, Ustad, was 9 years old. And his territory included a well-used path by pilgrims through that forest. National parks in India are weird. And I've been to Sasangir National Park, and you're in the middle of this forest area that is protected, that you need permits to get into, and then you come across weird structures inside the national park, weird temples, weird shrines, and the locals and the pilgrims, they don't need permits or anything like that. They can enter these forests and do their pilgrimages, but obviously at their own cost, at their own risk. So one of the paths that pilgrims take to and around the sacred Ganesha temple in Ranthambore Fort. Ranthambore's sick because it's got these old colonial structures and forts and things like that the British built while they were there, while they had occupancy of India, and they're still there. So you do see these old colonial buildings inside the national park. It's pretty crazy. And obviously 2 pilgrims were eaten by Ustad, and it was eaten right on the path and to the entrance to this fort/temple where they pilgrimaged to, and it was in broad daylight. So, yeah. Valmik Thapar goes on to say the Forest Department and the government of Rajasthan have done a spectacularly successful job in relocating a man-killing and eating tiger to a 1-hectare enclosure in Udaipur, where he is eaten and is calm, and where he'll spend the rest of his years. By doing this, they have made Ranthambore safer for the brave forest guards who patrol and the tens of thousands of pilgrims who walk. T24, after these 2 pilgrims were eaten, got relocated to a enclosure, which is a pretty big enclosure for a tiger. A great enclosure for a tiger. And he was eating, which is a good sign. If you take an animal out of the wild, a lot of times they won't eat because they're stressed. This is a completely new environment for them. But Ustad was eating, showed no signs of stress. And that's where he remained for the rest of his life. So when this happened, there were a lot of protests. A lot. It was a very controversial thing. Obviously, activists were out there saying you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do this. They'll probably think differently if one of their family members were eaten by Ustad. But Valmik Thapar is the tiger conservationist. He has done more for tiger conservation than probably anyone else on the planet. So all these activists coming out saying, you're not doing the right thing for the tiger. Nobody is more qualified to have a debate on this than Valmik Thapar. And he said outright that this tiger needed to be captured and put in captivity. A lot of activists think that, the tiger's just out there doing its thing, and which it is. I don't like retaliations to wild animals attacking people. I really don't. I don't think any animal should be persecuted for eating a human being. It is what they do, especially if they're large predatory animals. But the repercussions from that could lead to the death of multiple tigers. And I think that was Valmik Thapar's stance on this, is to save other tigers being killed, including Ustad, This is the best option for both parties. And I do agree with that. From 2015 to 2022, Ustad lived in captivity. Eventually, he suffered some health issues. He had a sore leg. They noticed him limping, and it turned out to be bone cancer. And eventually, Ustad died. Now, that is, that's got nothing to do with him in captivity. That is bone cancer. It can't really be helped in that sense. And in the wild, tigers would be lucky to live to 14 years. So realistically, he lived a decent life. It's better than him being deaded back when these deaths happened. So, are there still tiger attacks in Ranthambore National Park? Absolutely. Absolutely there is. In fact, out of all the big cats, tigers kill more people than any other of the big cats. Leopards are up there as well. There are cases of leopards, like individual leopards, killing multiple people. But tigers are just, man, they are next level. You will not see a tiger coming. That's for sure. Lions, if you stumble across a lion in the wild, for a lot of the cases, they're out in sort of openish savanna areas. Sure, you probably won't see them when they're sleeping under a bush and stuff, but it's a lot more. You could see them visually a lot easier than you could a tiger walking through a forest. That's for sure. So yeah, tigers are. They say lions are the king of the jungle. For one, lions don't really live in jungles. Tigers do. So I reckon tigers are truly the king of the jungle. Simply the fact that they are found in jungles, forested areas, whereas lions are more open grasslands, open plains, savanna. It does call into question how people deal with tigers, especially man-eating tigers. And there are cases of, like the Savo man-eaters, which are those two lions that killed potentially 150 people in Kenya. There are cases of tigers being famous for eating dozens of people, if not hundreds of people, and that's just attributed to one individual. But I decided to talk about this individual, even though he only killed 4 people that we know of. Due to the fact that Valmik Thapar recently passed away, I thought that was an interesting correlation. But to be honest, perfect example is when I was looking for Asiatic lions in India, they're found only in one forest in Gujarat, which is northwest in India. When I was looking for them, I was doing a documentary on them. There were loads of people that lived in that forest. And the Gir National Park, so the Gir Forest isn't that big, nowhere near the size of Ranthambore, but there is a group of people called the Maldari that live in that forest. They're cattle herders. And, they have Sasangir, that national park, that forest, very well patrolled. It's very hard to get in there without permits and things like that, although we did. Keep that hush-hush. But the Maldari are allowed to just live in there and farm their cattle, and lions take the cattle quite often, and the government subsidizes the cattle lost, which is cool, because it prevents the farmers retaliating and killing the lions. But we'd be on the vehicles driving through that national park, looking for lions, and there's just Maldari, just some dude on the side of the path just waving at us. Hey, how's it going, mate? And you see them, they carry around sticks, big walking sticks, and it's for the lions in case any of them try and eat them. But it's actually very surprising how little Maldari get eaten by these lions. It's like they have this understanding, and obviously the Maldari live with these lions and know a lot about their behaviors, where to look, where to walk, what times of day you're most likely to encounter a lion. And people in India regarding tigers, same sort of situation. A lot of the times, but a lot of the times it's like tigers are just so different to lions. They're just so different to lions. They have a way bigger roaming territory than lions. So for you never see tigers. That's the thing. You rarely see them, and then the only time you do see them could be when it has been watching you for a long time and is now ambushed and eaten you. Now, I've told this story before, but for those of you that haven't heard it, I was in the Malaysian jungle by myself for a week, just camping out in fairly deep jungle. And one night, I'm in my tent, and something keeps pushing on my head through the tent. And it felt like a hand pushing my head through the tent. And I would wake up and turn on my torch and yell to try and scare whatever it was off. Like, go away, go away, go away. And then I'll turn the torch off, go back to sleep. Same thing. This happened maybe 4 or 5 times. And it was pissing me off because I wanted to get some sleep. The next morning I wake up, unzip my tent, go out, and there are tiger footprints all around my tent. So a tiger was pushing its nose onto my head through my tent. Now, Malayan tigers are very, very rare. They're very, believe they're critically endangered now. So very hard to find in the wild. So in that sense, it was kind of cool that I did have somewhat of an experience with the Malayan tiger. But scary as all get up that it was sniffing me out through my tent at night time while I was by myself. And you never know that for how long has that tiger known I was in that area. So it's pretty crazy. And he could have just with one claw just gone, yip, just put a nice little cut in that tent and dragged me away. Pretty crazy. Now, I will do a whole other episode on certain individual big cats that are famous for killing and eating a lot of people, because I think it's pretty crazy that there is that myth of man-eaters, why certain animals become man-eaters. With the Savo lions, it was never truly confirmed, but there was the theory of they had infected teeth, so they preyed upon easier prey, being humans, rather than their usual prey, which are normally largish antelope. And there are a lot of cool theories as to why, for example, in Bangladesh, bordering on India, there is a massive expanse of mangroves called the Sundarbans. And there are a lot of tiger attacks in the Sundarbans, and there are a lot of theories going around as to why. One of the reasons is pretty cool, but I'm not going to say it now because it will kind of spoil the episode I want to do on that. But it's fairly interesting. Yeah. Rest in peace, Valmik Thapar. Rest in peace, T24, aka Ustad. And obviously rest in peace, the people he ate. Oh, it's a terrible thing, but, it is nature, man. We think we're on the top of the food chain, and a lot of times we're not. And I love being in areas where I know I am not on the top of the food chain. There's just something about walking on foot through a jungle, through a forest, where at any point you could become a meal. Most people won't think that's cool, but I certainly do. I love it. I love Australia. I love the fact that we have cool animals, but it's just missing that land predator vibe. I go walking through a bush in Australia. I know I'm perfectly safe. Yes, there are snakes, there are, spiders that can be potentially deadly, but it's just that feeling of, something big stalking you. I reckon it's really cool, and you just don't get that in Australia on land. In the water, that's a different story. Especially in Western Australia, we have the record. So I'm in Western Australia right now. I live in Perth, which is the capital city of Western Australia. And Western Australia has now the current record for the most fatal shark attacks out of anywhere else in the world. So, well done, Western Australia. We did it. And obviously, when you go into the Northern Territory, you have saltwater crocodiles, which are responsible for human fatalities as well. And they, saltwater crocodiles are just next level. You ain't surviving. Once a huge saltwater crocodile has a hold of you, that would be the last thing that ever has a hold of you. That is for sure. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Thorns Jungle. If you want some Thorns Jungle merchandise, in fact, damn it, I've just put it away. A few days ago, I got one of the new Thorns Jungle t-shirts in, and it's probably one of my favorite shirts now. It fits so good. It's like black with that like fadedness to it. It looks like, that stonewashed shit look to it. It looks vintage, but it looks dope. It looks metal, man. Fucking metal. Heavy metal, dude. So if you want to buy one of them, head over to biothorn.com.au and check out the shop or the store or whatever it's called on the website. You can pick up a nice mug, fucking Thorns Jungle mug or a Thorns Jungle shirt and some other stuff. So, yeah. Have a great weekend, everyone. And I'll see you next time in another episode of Thorns Jungle. Take care.